Literally out of your socks into your sandals. Hi, Melissa.
Yeah.
Hi, Melissa.
Say hello, toch. He wants to say hi. He's still busy writing exams. Come, sit down. Okay, I'm going to say bye. Get Melissa on.
Yeah.
Guys.
Mute myself.
Hi, Melissa.
Give me just a moment.
Hi.
Hello, you guys. I'm going to grab some water. I will be right back. Hello, Marlene.
I'm just going to now make excuse. I have someone that might come to pick up some stuff that I'm selling while I'm in the meeting. So I might have to kind of give attention to something else for a while in the middle of this.
Hey. Okay, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Jeff. Hello, Sylvia. Hello, Marlene. Hello, Anita. Hello, Alice and Robin. Oh my gosh. Good to see you guys.
Good to see everybody.
Yes, let's see. Manage participants. That sounds so bad. I'm going to manage you guys. Okay. All right. So, how is everybody doing? How's everybody doing so far? Good.
Great.
Very good.
Yes. Yeah. How about those happy stories? My gosh, you guys.
I know, amazing stuff's happening. I love it.
And like, I was so happy. Like I think I'm going to continue to do what I did that night for the service when Kirby starts kind of breaking out in miracles. I know that was his birthday, but I have a feeling we're going to start moving a little bit more towards some of that. And because I think it maybe helps everybody to get more involved in it, you know, to be like, because I know you guys are on the live chat, but to really be able to involve you that way, I think it make it a little bit more direct. What do you think?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. Today, sorry, please. Today I met with the live group here, and I got to meet with them one-on-one, and it was the meetings were really good. And it's really important, especially if any of you ever think of coming out here and staying here for long periods of time, like you, Onita. I know it's exciting, and because it's very important, because when you come here, it's a different animal, because you're here and it's wonderful to be here, but you're still in a third world country. You're still in a different culture. You're having to adjust to the WOW culture, and after you've come out of where you come from, and even though you love being there, the unindoctrination process is pretty huge. And then when you're on ground, it's just right there in your face all the time. So you're faced with all of that stuff that's going on in your head and in your heart, and sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy, you know. I remember when I come the first time that, you know, I had to be talked off the ledge a few times, even though it was really great to be here. I mean, it was an adjustment. It was quite an adjustment. And so those meetings that I get to have with them are very meaningful, because it does something in them to help them to go on and continue to receive unoffended, you know, because you can definitely get into a cycle and spiral down in that cycle. So even though you're in such an extraordinary place with the extraordinary word, right? So, but enough about me. Let's hear about you guys. So I just want to go one by one, and I just want to hear about what's been going on with you, how the word's been affecting you, whether it's the study or the words that Kirby is releasing. I just want to hear from you. So today, if you don't mind, Marlene, I'd like to start with you.
Is that, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm not really, hello everyone. I'm not really familiar with this system on here. Yeah, it was quite an amazing service, wasn't it? Kirby's birthday. Oh my goodness. All happening there. I'm still waiting for my gold teeth though. Yeah, it's just so much happening, and the group I found really helpful, the group conversation, because so much is going on there and it's happening to everybody at the same time, kind of thing. It's almost like a quickening. Can you still hear me? I've got interference. Right. It's just like a quickening for everybody. So, and lots of people experiencing the same kind of miracles as well. So it's been quite good, quite interesting in that. Well, that's it. I can't hear you.
Marlene, have you been following the Bible study and all that yet?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's here.
Yeah. And so, can you tell us a little bit about what you've been getting from that, if anything? If not.
It's just interesting to read how difficult it was for the early church, and how easy it was for them to fall back into their old ways. To fall back into their old ways, and like Paul's writing to them to remind them or to guide them. But he's quite blunt in his approach. I don't know who that is.
Going.
Sorry?
No, I just said keep going, carry on.
Oh no, that's all really. That's all. You're putting me on the spot. First in, first time here.
I know. Put the new girl on the spot.
Yeah. Oh dear. But no, it's just interesting to read Romans, and like the message last week, to not be offended or not to take offense when someone doesn't speak to you, or someone looks at you in the wrong way, or someone, you know, you think, oh, well, why, what's going on? But just to not be offended by what's going on around you, and to still focus on where you're going or what you're doing, and to enjoy the journey, not the end result.
Yeah. Because I mean, offense, I mean, that's as you've probably heard throughout the podcast, we talk about that a lot.
Mhm.
Because when one gets into offense, that's when you basically, you're blinded. It blinds you to anything of the spirit. You don't see, you don't hear, and so you're just in that thing. And even with the offense, and everybody, we could probably relate to this, even if the offense came in one way. For example, I like to use my taxi drivers. I can be completely offended with the taxi driver in the morning, and it creates a chain reaction with everyone throughout the rest of the day if I allow it. Yeah? And when you're in that place, you're unconscious of him, and really it hinders your effectiveness as a manifest son on this earth, because the earth is waiting for you. But if you're bothered with that thing and you're in that posture, then you can't really be who you are, you know?
That's it. And you know, when you talk to friends and they're gossiping or something, and you kind of think, look, I don't really want to get involved, or I don't want to say anything which is judgmental. And like maybe in the past you would have kind of, oh yeah, tell me more, what's going on there? Oh, that's terrible. But now it's kind of like, oh, I'll try and change the subject or say something positive and say, oh, you'll get through this, it will pass, as opposed to, you know, character assassination or something. So, yeah.
And that's where those things start, because as you do it more, because we can all relate, when you get into a situation where everybody just has not one good thing to say, and you're there like, but that's where, again, don't even get offended by what they're saying. Because they're trapped in it. They don't know how to do it really any other way than what they've been doing. And so we're in there to, in whatever way the spirit leads, bring something else in there. Like, just an example, if I may, I guess everybody knows I'm a personal trainer. I do fitness groups and stuff like that. Sometimes my fitness groups, they start getting on I'm old, I'm injured, I'm sick kind of thing. And it's just like, and then they just start going. And I will interject something in there, then they'll go again. This happened recently. Then I interject something in there, then they went again. And then finally I typed, silence naysayers, you're awesome whether you think you are or not. And then it stopped.
And then
it stopped, and they stopped doing it and stopped talking about it. Do you see what I'm saying? And it just changed the whole atmosphere. It was just a funny little humorous thing. Nobody got ticked off. It's just, it was something that a posture they just got into that just took something very simple to get them out of it, you know? And if you stay in that posture of on offense, because you can get offended by what they're saying, even though you may know better, you could get into that posture and then end up contributing and operating in that same spirit they're operating in, you know?
Okay, that's it from me, I think.
Okay. Like, okay, me time done. Okay.
Oh dear, I'll be ready for you next week, Melissa.
Thank you. Okay, Anita, you're next.
Okay. Tuesday was amazing. It was just amazing. I mean, actually, I think it started, when was it? The last United. It was like, since then, like a build up almost for me, that I've noticed, even like in the miracles and in the prophetic, it was just building up. It didn't stop with the United meeting. And but it's, I ran up and down my little hallway. It's 4 steps one way and 4 steps back. I was running all the time. And I'm still waiting for the gold and silver teeth as well, but they're going to come, I believe.
Yeah.
I had my glasses off at a stage checking. and for reading, but it's also not there yet. But I trust when I need new glasses that it's gonna be either that I need something less than what I have now, or that I don't need them. And then, what was it? Yeah, I think I'm really starting to get hold of this whole I'm a son thing. Mm-hmm. I'm really starting to get it. It's and it's much less of doing certain things than what it is a heart posture. Yeah. Kind of. It's like I'm just starting to kind of rest in it. So it's, yeah, it's then reading. I think I am getting a very new angle on Romans. Mm-hmm. Romans is probably one of the books, together with Acts, that I've read the most in the Bible, and but especially the first like 5 chapters. Mm. I'm beginning to see that it wasn't that the church was doing that things at that stage. Mm-hmm. When he wrote it. He was reminding them where they came from. Okay. And the way I've always seen it before was that, man, this Roman church is full of people that's full of sin, because look at what they're doing. Yeah. But it's clear now for me that he wasn't telling them how you're doing these things now. He was reminding them that you come from a place where you have done these things, and where the people that are still in those beliefs are still doing these things, but you have been taken out from it. Uh-huh. And especially the way Jackie explained the first 5 chapters gave me a really much better perspective of that idea, that it wasn't that they were still doing it, but that he was more like reminding them where they came from. And therefore see the grace that you've got, you know. Yeah. And today was chapter 8, which is now clearly coming back into that thing of like, and the sin and the sinful, the sin in the body and the body and the there was one verse that stood out for me. Let me quickly see if I can find it. Okay. Oh. Anyway, I can't find it now. I don't want to waste time. But it was like 2 verses, and I was like, wow. I've never read it like, I think I've always kind of separated the 2, and suddenly they just went like a puzzle into each other, and I was like, awesome. Yeah. It's just like 2 verses following each other, but it was kind of like I suddenly realized like they work together. Oh, now I know exactly which verse it was. Okay. It's like the verse that speaks about the spirit of that raised Jesus from the dead. Yeah. That was, I think it is in today's chapter. Or was it yesterday's chapter? But the verse just before it speaks about death still reigns in the body.
Mhm.
And so I realized, like, wow, people often say, like, yeah, and that's probably one of the verses that people might use to say, like, we have to die because
Yes.
death is still in my body. This body has to die. But the very next verse says, but if he, the spirit that raised Jesus from the dead, is in you, he will give life to that body.
Yes.
And then I was like, these two go together.
Yeah.
You know, the one about the spirit giving life to my body, I have been holding on to that for quite a while, even before I heard the word of immortality. In some way, I believe that is part of why I've never been someone that gets sick a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's partly that. But then to realize just the verse before that, it talks still about the body that still have death, that still reigns in the body.
Yeah.
But he actually counters it and he says, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Absolutely.
Because the spirit that rose Jesus from the dead is in you and he gives life to your mortal body.
Yes.
So basically, if it gives life to the mortal body, it makes that mortal body immortal.
Yes.
Because if it's life, it can't die. It was just like a new, like, whoo, for me today in that specific verse. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And it's a good one to remember because also I believe it's in Romans 7 where he's talking about the thing I want to do, I don't end up doing, and the thing I don't want to do, I practice. And it's the thing is, your members have been programmed for death. But you, who you are born again from above, and like what you said, the spirit had to come because that's the only one that could bring life to that body of death. That's why it says, who's going to save me from this body of death? Because that's what it would be, apart from the spirit.
Yes.
So everybody else, they have a body of death. It is dying. They have no recourse. Unless they're born again, the spirit comes, then you get this privilege of life that you don't have to die unless you say so in terms of being a Christian, right? So it's like, it's very exciting, you know, and you don't have to look at yourself in despair anymore and say, oh my gosh, I'm deteriorating. Because if it is, it may very well be that you needed what Onita is saying today, that that spirit is in you, it's quickening you. Now recognize it and become conscious and allow it. Like, absolutely, really enjoying you guys' before and after pictures. Because when you sent them to me and I knew I was going to do happy stories, I sent them to him. And he was seeing like the drastic changes between pre-word and then word, you know. It brings life, it quickens you. And it's still on the chat. If you guys haven't seen it, go back and look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. Like, I have it as my profile picture. Just 2 days ago, somebody asked me, like, hey, you and this other lady on your profile picture, you look alike. Are you family? And I said to her, no, they're both me. And she was a little baffled because she knows me like now, you know, she's in my life now. But she didn't know me 10 years ago. And she was like, no, but how is it possible? Because the other one looks like older than you. I said, yeah, that's me, like back in 2010. Yeah. It's fun to see people's reactions sometimes when they, especially the ones that didn't know me back then, because the ones that knew you, they see the change slowly happening. So they don't realize how big, I mean, I didn't realize how big the change was until I put the two pictures together. But for someone that didn't know me back then, that only knows me about 2 years, they're like no, are you sure? Really? Is it you?
And you know,
She thought it's maybe an older sister or cousin or something.
and let me tell you, you see how your friends and family sometimes don't notice the change, because that's the unconsciousness of life. They
Yeah.
see you as this one thing. And even though you might be changed, a lot of times, most of them don't allow you to be anything other than what they see you as.
Exactly.
And that's why it's very important to guard your heart and stay out from under the words of people that are familiar with you, because they have
Yes.
you locked into something, and you can come under that and stay under that if you're not careful, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's it for me. We can move on.
Thank you, Anita. Okay, Sylvia, you're next.
Hi, I've said hi before. Yeah, let me just start off with the service and the craziness of Tuesday. I mean, I have backache every day. Every single day. I was in a car accident, so it was my neck. And then I worked very hard in England, injured my upper back, and then the lower back. I don't know where that came in. But since Tuesday, I've not had any lower backache. Nothing. Backache is all gone. There. Is it better? Can you hear me? I still have it. I can still feel my knee a little bit. But I'm amazed. It was crazy because I had the iPad going and the cell phone, and Melissa, as she was sending messages, I was running up and down my garden, ran in here, ran up in I mean, I cannot tell you how many times, 20 times I've been up and down, and it was just crazy. I came in, nothing, I didn't feel anything in my chest at all. And yeah, I was blown. So I'm very grateful to God. And I'm expecting more, because my dream is really to go back into weight training. I really want to feel that, you know, that bar on my shoulders doing what I used to do and things like that. And it will come. It will come. At this point in time, I'm in ketosis. Happy. So I'm very happy. The fast has helped me to change eating habits and stuff like that. So I'm grateful to God as well about that one. Regarding Romans, for me, I love the book of Romans, but I also have like that, you know, you're scared of picking the book up because you read the first couple of chapters and you're feeling so condemned before you get to chapter 8, and chapter 8 makes me feel even more condemned. But going through it this time, I realized, and I realized that it points to different groups of people. For me, what I saw was the law versus grace, but I also see the people that's completely outside of God, that doesn't believe. They saw that in there as well. And then I got to my favorite book, and just to tell you about it, Romans 8 verse 1. Up to half the verse, saved my life. I came back from England after the bombings, but I went through condemnation I can't tell anybody about. I literally thought I was in hell, that the worms were eating me. That's the time I went down to Spirit Word, and I've learned about God's grace. But the condemnation was so bad, and all I would do is, I'm not condemned, and I would quote half of Romans. So reading the first 6 chapters was a no-no for me. I mean, every time I read it, I would feel worse, but I'm so grateful God opened my eyes, and He's still opening my eyes more and more. But I just want to, I want to do just the first verse with you, and I want you to put a comma in somewhere. You know, it says, therefore there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, comma, who live, walk, not after the dictates of the flesh. So the question is, who's not walking after the dictates of the flesh? We have died. We've been raised with him. We're seated with him. So the verse there is talking about him, not us, because when I got to the second piece, the second part of the verse, I felt condemned. I couldn't go on. I couldn't see what Romans was showing me. Then I realized I'm so dead. And with Prophet's teachings, this is becoming more and more alive. I'm a spirit being. I'm not. So it's starting to put the rest of Romans into the categories, because what it's showing that for me, flesh, sin, and condemnation belongs to that world of the law, and I don't belong in that because I'm in Christ. So it's separating it so beautifully. And reading through the rest of Romans, I really realized okay, it says flesh, but that flesh is attached to the law world. So the book of Romans has unfolded, and it's a big one for me. And putting it in, it puts me more in the position and everything that Prophet's been teaching about in our position before God. And one thing I've realized is that we are striving for something that we already are. Faith is a now. It's right now. We're before God. And since all of this is happening, and I cannot tell anybody the last how many weeks, the teaching about sonship, walking to the shop, feeling I'm in a bubble. Sometimes I get the feeling we elevated above the natural, but I can physically sense it. Now, yesterday was my anniversary, my late husband's anniversary, and I'm standing outside, and there he is in the cloud waving at me. I didn't think, I thought to myself, what's this? I'm seeing things I've never seen before. I'm becoming aware of where we are living, and I really hope it's just not me. I hope somebody can confirm this. So yeah, that is what is brought to me. But going through the book of Romans, it's not fearful. I must say, I'm already in Romans 11, listening to that. And now I can go back from the position where I am. And it's just awesome. I'm so grateful. That's all I have for you.
All right, so yes, amazing. Very, very, very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I don't know if you guys are noticing, but Sylvia, you're different every time you come on here. It's like you're different, like you've just been enlightened, for lack of a better term. It's like really pretty awesome. It's like
very much so.
It's like teacher is coming out of you. Really cool.
Yes.
Yeah. And
thank you. Thanks to God.
Because oftentimes I'm in a place and I'm walking forward, but I'm aware that I'm back in a place, but walking forward. So I'm here, but not in this dimension. And so I'm very aware of what's going on around me, what the people are doing, and I'm very aware of how they're looking at me, and they turn and sometimes they look at me with these wide eyes. And one can attribute it to, oh, she's a foreigner. But there's a lot of foreigners here that aren't being looked at like that. And so I'm very aware that I am peculiar. I am different in this place. And that people respond to me, and that situations are responding to me around me. And just all of our eyes are opening up because they've been allowed to. Because before, if you can relate, you were told to shut your eyes. Don't think too highly of yourself. You can't be thinking that of yourself, in some form or fashion. And so even though we want to rise up above that, we've been given permission now in the form of Kirby and Fiona who actually live it. So because they live this, they can bring you into it. So if your heart is submitted and connected to theirs, you could walk into their labor. And they are truly manifest sons. They're honestly the first ones that I've seen, you know, me personally. And so, I mean, those of you who knew Prophet Kovas, probably, he was probably one of the first ones, but you know. And so now because Kirby now, he's a teacher, a prophet, and he knows how to disciple. He's got a very unique thing going on that draws you in and allows you to become in a way that I've never experienced. And I don't know if you guys can relate. And so because of that, now we can actually step in and see. Our eyes are being opened, and we don't live in, you know, Romans 8, now there's therefore no more condemnation. You know, because if the question is posed to us, who do you think you are? We really are something different than everybody else, not exalting ourselves above them, but we're different, and we are not part of their experience anymore. So we do not have to be subject what they are subject to anymore. It's different now. Yeah? So, Helena, you're next.
Hello, everybody. This is Kenzie, my granddaughter.
Hello. Cute.
Hello. Sorry if you hear rhyme songs in the background. One of the things that stood out for me, sorry, let me start at the beginning. Romans 7. I read last night. I was not in the right frame of mind. So in the end, it's like the lift didn't go up. So I stopped halfway because I read and I have absolutely no understanding at all what does Romans 7 say. And since then, I haven't carried on reading. The beginning part of especially Romans from 1 to 5, for the first time, when Melissa said about the pills, it's good if you drink the pills or medication was created by the word. Everything was created by the word. I took it, I believe it, and I run with it, that my focus is not in the pills or whatever to bring me healing or the food. But as I read Romans, all of a sudden it is like I got the word behind what Melissa said. So the two together, it was powerful because he said again, when I read the Passion Translation, it is clearly, it's not in the polls, it's not in this, it is only in the word. And I believe Melissa, and I listened to it, but now the word came and it even made it stronger in me. And for that, I say thank you. That's all.
Anything else, Helena?
No.
Okay. Thank you. No, that's awesome. Because, you know, when I speak and when others speak, especially when you guys who are sons speak, it does plant a seed. And then the water of the word comes again and it waters it. And then it's God that brings the increase. And so there's times when it comes in increase right away, and there's other times it comes and you water it. And just I don't know, Marlon, if you heard it, it's basically the understanding of this. Everything that was made by the word. Everything. And there was nothing that was made that wasn't made by the word. But yet, you will hear, like, for example, the Christians say, don't take that medication. It's not faith in God. Okay? Now, sometimes it may not be. It may be faith in medication. Okay? But God can actually lead you to medication because he was the author of it anyway, because everything was made by the word. Now, just because it didn't come out perfectly, because that medication kind of thing was funneled through probably an unregenerated soul. But everything was made by the word. And so if God tells you to take it, that means he's in it, and then it can heal you. Like simple mud being spit in can heal eyes. Do you see what I'm saying? Jesus, the way that he did things, could have done them very differently, could have just spoken, said the word, but yet he did and took these actions because he did what he saw his Father doing, and God plus that thing equals total healing, total transformation. And so for Helena, that's just, she just got into that experience, that understanding that that thing was by the word, and then it did it for her because when she got the revelation. So, Robin, your turn.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, good. I haven't been following with Romans. I guess I need the link. I'm kind of behind on that. I did the first one, so I don't really quite know what we're supposed to be doing. But what's been happening with me lately is that the fasting is still happening with me. I'm just feeling a big difference in my body and my desire to eat and not to eat, and things I thought would make me feel good or whatever, like chocolate cake I was craving. Had a little piece of chocolate cake and it was like, this is nothing. So things that I desired before, I don't desire now. I'm only eating 2, 3, maybe 4 times a day and not hardly anything. It's just, it's exciting because I want to lose weight. I want to be healthy, but I want to be healthy through communion too, but I want to bring my body into subjection. It's seemed to have a mind of its own and steering me in the wrong direction and listening to my flesh rather than listening to just eating when I'm hungry and eating right and so on. So I'm kind of focused a little bit on that and excited about the changes in that. But what I've been doing mostly is I've been listening to the services, but I keep going back to the playlist of the Manifested Sons. And I keep going back to Double Double, I think it is. Yeah. Or Double Double and Manifested Sons and the playlist of the Manifested Sons. And it's so powerful. It keeps touching me. And going back to what Melissa shared last week, in a nutshell, I was really excited about that. But I find myself going and getting the revelation and getting it and going. God takes me in rabbit trails and gives me more revelation, but then it's like I lose it. It's like, oh, what was that? And so I'm keep going back and re-getting it until I can walk in that place. But the playlist of the Manifested Son to me is revelation and life-changing because of how I used to always look at the flesh compared to being a son of God. You know, the cliche way that the church teaches that, you know, you're a new creation, but they don't look at it as a new creation. They look at it more as like Kirby says, improved, which is totally a different mindset. And so that's where I'm at. But Melissa, I think, said something today that kind of touched me. She said about our unconsciousness and being unconscious of being under condemnation or under when somebody says something that's familiar with you and how they treat you, and you unconsciously might accept it, and you know you're going to be in that place. Unconsciousness of life. Well, I think we're all operating, not that most people until they get this are operating under the unconsciousness of death, not life, because everything is under the fallen nature until we manifest and manifest around us. So we're unconsciously accepting death as life. Instead of we're becoming more and more aware of life instead of death, because everything's under death and under the curse. And when people say things, when people eat, when people do things, they're all doing it under the curse, unless they're knowing that they're the ones that bring life through Christ in us. And when she said that, I kind of like broadened my horizon and say, yeah, I don't want to be under the unconsciousness of death, of the death cycle, which most Christians have accepted as life.
Mhm.
And that just kind of triggered something in me, and I just kind of wanted to share that
Awesome.
and tell you that little nuggets of things that you guys say trigger me, and I write them down, and it's like, oh yeah, and then God takes me on these little trails all over in different directions and then pulls them together later on, and I love that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Excellent. Excellent.
I'm done.
All right. Jeff, are you there?
Hey, everybody. I'm packing, so I'm in and out of rooms, but I'm listening to to all the discussion, and it sounds great and all. But just ask if you excuse me. I'm kind of hustling to get everything packed up and ready before I fly out for tonight.
All right, that's cool. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, you, Alice.
Hey guys, so I'm finishing up my workout. Can you come back to me? But I'm listening.
Yes, absolutely. That's cool. Go ahead. Carry on. Okay, Milene, I know you just came on, but can we hear what you got to say?
Oh, I just came on, so I want to say that things have really shifted for me.
Okay.
I used to be more in the victim mode. Oh, I think I can do it. I think I can't. But now it's like, I know. I know it's all possible. And I'm just speaking it to my surrounding. It's such a great feeling. I feel so much freedom and love and joy. And I've been praying for joy for the past like 3-4 years. And I had lost it throughout the years, but I got it back thanks to all of you.
So important, you know, because if it's not in joy, usually it's an offense. Anything in life, if it's not from that real place of joy, it's probably being done in offense, and then it keeps you living very short-sighted. And so what a discovery, you know?
Yeah, and things are shifting. Like I was listening to Kirby's message, I get a text from somebody, I get just good news. And my mom calls and says she's feeling better. I mean, I'm like, yeah, I'm praying for you. I have everybody in the bubble now.
Awesome.
Like I go with the atmosphere. Like I go and I'm like, okay, it's all for you guys now.
Awesome. Beautiful.
I know. Thank you.
Okay, you guys, wow. So much, I mean, so much has been happening. I'm gonna put these on and I'm gonna talk to you. With me, I don't know what all has happened to me, but ever since Prophet did that message on you're not entangled with the blessing of Abraham, everything has shifted around for me. And it's like, it used to be like when Kirby would preach, there would be times he'd look at me and I would turn away. I would feel my eyes involuntarily turn away. Just things toward men, anger, you know, all kinds of stuff was going on. But after that message, gone. And now things that used to be really like, things aren't terribly hard for me, but things that it would just take my effort, like I was treading through mud to make it happen. All of a sudden, I got a business idea that already has the potential to yield about millions. And I mean, it's like all of this just came to me, and it was such an ease. I was just sitting down in the mall in the food court, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I'll just do that. Got online, posted it, 100 responses pretty much right away. And I'm like, now this has always kind of been there, but I couldn't get it out. So, I mean, I would like to really explore, God, what exactly happened, but something happened and it was huge. And so, I mean, just the whole thing with the furniture, to me, it was big because when we went and got the furniture, you know, I was like, okay, 2 weeks. All right. Okay, God, I'm just going to send angels and maybe let's just get it in 2 days. And it happened. Do you see what I'm saying? And I was very aware today that I was like, okay, God, I don't want to be in this place where I'm shocked you actually did it. Like if I pray something and it happens, I'm shocked that he actually did. I want the awe and the wonder of it. I want the gratefulness and the love in it, but I don't want to be like, oh my gosh, he did it. You see what I'm saying? But I think in that breakthrough that I had, now I'm open, I'm trusting him more. I'm trusting who he says I am, actually, without feeling condemned and arrogant for speaking. I know you guys can relate to that one, where people are so, again, who do you think you are? But now when I hear that, to me, it's the enemy. If you are the Son of God, it's just coming to you in modern day vernacular, you know? And so it's like, yes, who do I think I am? It's like, who do I know I am? I'm a son. I'm a completely different species, and I'm not locked into your common experience anymore. So what you see of me when you look at me because you're familiar with me, you're probably absolutely right about that old person. She was probably like that, probably worse than what you know. Okay? But I'm not that anymore. And I can now, with confidence, say, I'm really not that. You can call me that, you can label me that if you want to, but I don't need to come under that. I'm not. You know? And it's an invitation to them to come into that confidence. Like, this is the confidence that we speak in. And, you know, you're arrogant, you're delusional. Ah, well, you might just be right about that if I was in the flesh, but but I'm this. And I'm becoming even more of this. And I mean, it's so exciting. It's so exciting. It just opens everything up. My God, you know? And just, you know, on the chat, like when you guys are on the chat, as you know, we all come from very different backgrounds. Okay. And sometimes you see it come out. It's like someone took the little thing of marriage and went, and it went. I mean, all over the place. And it was like, wow. And when I'm reading it, I'm like, I'm actually a little bit amused by it. So I'm like, oh my God. But you see, this is that kind of Romans thing. You know, we are so indoctrinated at times with what we've been taught over the years about this subject that when you bring it up and you start adding stuff like abuse and all that, oh my gosh, you know, you get all kinds of stuff, and you start to see where you can even get up there and justify the law. Well, he's hurting her, so therefore he's this, and she needs to get out of there. Do you see what I'm saying? And then you can be thinking, oh, what a horrible person he is. He deserves this. And yeah, because he's wrong. But it's still the law. You see what I'm saying? It's still the law. And that's why when I put it up there, it's like you've got to first get yourself out of the posture that I am justified in thinking this of you by the law. Because if you're in the law, you're going to do things that are law-based, and nothing good is going to come of it, no matter how well your intentions are, because the letter of the law kills. And so even though a solution, for example, might be she will leave, we need to make sure that it is not by the law, but by the Spirit. Otherwise, this person might leave the scenario and think she's fine, for example, but end up back in the exact same scenario. You see it all the time because she was never freed. She walked out externally, but it was still under the law. She was never freed by the Spirit. And so she'll keep doing it again and again and again. And like, I'm sure you guys can relate. I was a social worker for about 9-10 years. I saw this stuff all the time. And we used to like look and think, oh God, you know, and then we'd get mad at that person. Well, she wants this, then she deserves this, blah, 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 blah. Law. Because you came in to rescue with the law. She didn't respond to it. So then now you're under the law. You're going to get what you deserve for staying. You know, I mean, and it's a never ending thing. And it's a big mess. That's why the world will never solve it. Law. Which comes back to Romans 8, which is why the world is waiting for manifest sons to handle these situations differently, even though your flesh might be rising up in the law and trying to go and save this person. Well, they don't need you to be their savior. They have one of those. Yeah. And so it's hard because your knee-jerk reaction is, you know, and whatever it is, don't be ashamed of that. Your subjective stuff will come up. And if it doesn't come up, how is it ever going to get dealt with? Yeah. So no condemnation. Yeah. On that. But recognize that it's not enough just to say I'm different and then operate it into things that are pleasant to us. You have to operate in that different mode of operation with everything, with those things that aren't pleasant to us, like an abusive marriage, abusive situation. Yeah? Are you guys tracking with me on that? And so that's why, again, the world needs sons, because they'll just keep recycling the same solutions. Recycling is a very good word. Notice how different teachings about things and medicine and fitness and all of that, they keep coming out every year again, the same in a new package. because they don't have the benefit of being connected, but this is God's creation, and the rain falls on the just and unjust, so they can pick things up, but it's going to run through their unregenerated soul and end up being pretty much the same thing again. Yeah? And then, even if it is something new, people are going to run to it and bow to it. Then it's going to suck the life out of it, and then it's going to be useless after a year or two until someone comes along with something that's seemingly new. And so there is the rat race. Right? But when a son comes along, they can take those new things, use those new things, but because it's by the Spirit of God, those things will come to you and be supercharged and give life, whereas everybody else will take that thing, plug their IV into it, and suck the life out of it until it becomes death to them. Yeah? And see, I like this, the way this is coming to me, because it's showing you, yeah, we're in this same place, as it were, with these same experiences in front of us, but depending on how you know, what posture you go in, and you as a son, you get to choose your posture. So when you lose it, for example, when you're encountered with an abusive marriage, it's not because another way hasn't been offered to you. Do you see what I'm saying? It's because you're choosing, because you're that powerful. You know, everybody else that is not connected with him through the Son has to choose between the old saying, the lesser of two evils. That's all they get until. Yeah? And so that being said, I was thinking about the marriage thing. Who's been to mystical marriage? Hand raise. Or went through mystical marriage? Okay. Oh boy. Okay. I got to talk to Kirby about this, and I got to get the mystical marriage for this group. Oh my God. Because this explains a lot. Okay. Okay. And no, I don't mean to be disrespectful at all. Please hear me. Kirby and Fiona are not conference people. You probably already guessed that, okay? So when they dedicate an entire subject to a conference, listen. So I'm going to speak to you about the mystical marriage from my perspective and using things in the Word, okay? Personally, those of you probably don't know, I was actually married before. Yeah? I was married back in 1999 when I was 26 years old. And it didn't last long. And, you know, you go into, okay, I've got to get married. Here's the list of why. Because the world tells you why you should be getting married, why it should be at this age, who it should be to. And so even though the list is in front of you, it's an unconscious thing that's in your heart. And so I had this thing in that I needed to get this done real soon. And then I had all these other messages is that because I lived a really kind of wild, party, promiscuous life, that maybe nobody would want to marry me. So I needed to find someone and just kind of snap them up. Do you see what I'm saying? Great reason to get into a marriage. You could see why it ended in a divorce. Okay. But even with our own marriages, even if we're still married, we can probably relate to the certain things that we were indoctrinated with that pushed us towards that. Yeah? Some might be perceived as good things. Some might be perceived as bad. Who knows? But all of it is really a gross misunderstanding of what God was actually wanting with marriage. Okay? And so here I am. I'm now out of this marriage, and now I'm a Christian. And so then you get a whole other set of rules and things and why. But if you look at those things, they're very much worldly driven. Even though you might be putting laws of no premarital sex, no living together, you know, all of those things, it really doesn't change much the heart of it. Yeah? So let's just say we're going for purity and we're only going out together in groups and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, what are you doing? You're sizing them up. You have a list of, I want this, 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 this in a partner. So you're looking externally, going check, 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 check. And then you're in your conversations and then you're like, oh, I had a list. And because I'm a Christian with a list, then this must be God. And so then you go and you enter into that. And because you did your courtship and he made the list, you think everything is going to be fine. Then you get into the marriage. Now, like I said, I basically was single for 10 years, single, abstinent, all that, 10 years, and didn't want anything to do with marriage. Because of the first marriage I came out of. Now, it wasn't a bad guy. It was just a bad idea. Okay? And so I come out of that and I'm looking around, and honestly, I'm looking at Christian marriages and I'm honestly not seeing anything any different than what I saw there. And no matter how anybody tried to flower it up, make it look pretty, and say certain things, all I see is two people just kind of getting old and stagnant and used to each other, dishonoring each other, and I don't get it. If that's what this is supposed to be, then I don't get it and I don't want anything to do with it. Yeah? And then I would hear things like, submit to your husband and all of that. And because I had come out of abusive relationships, that would make my blood boil. I'm like, submit to him? What is he, your dad? I mean, just stuff like that. that kind of thing, and then I would see almost even the abuses of that. Then I would hear women say, my husband let me come to this conference, and then I would be like, kind of, that kind of stuff. And I'm just being completely transparent with you. And then would come the prophecies. Oh, how old are you, honey? You're so pretty. You should be married. God's going to send you your husband. I'm like, I'm so pretty, and that's why I should be married? And this is the funny thing, this is the kicker. Always when I was fasting, oh, your husband is coming. And so, I mean, after a while, it's just you just stand there and you're like inwardly rolling your eyes. Waiting for such a bad attitude, but I'm just telling you, that's just kind of how I was and all of that. And, and after a while, I would get really, really angry. I got very sarcastic. Well, don't you want to be married? No, leave me alone, kind of thing. And I just developed a really bad attitude about it. And so I would see it. And it got to the place where I just absolutely despised marriage. Yeah. And so I remember distinctly, it was December of 2013. And my friend came out of her room. I was with my roommate. And she said, she was telling me about a phone call that she was on with a well-known preacher. And she goes, oh, yes. And by the way, Angela says, get prepared for marriage. And I'm like, now, this wasn't your run-of-the-mill prophecy that I would get, This was a person that would never say anything like that. And so I was like, okay, I'm paying attention. And so I went to God because, again, I had no desire for it. My heart was pretty hard towards it. Yeah. And so I went to God. I was like, okay, get prepared for marriage. How do you do that? Kind of thing. And so I started reading marriage books. And I remember I was like, God, please don't make me do it. Because I would read these books and I'm like, And then everybody at that time was getting on Christian Mingle. I had 5 friends that actually got married off of Christian Mingle. They're still married today. They're still married, right? So I'm like, should I get on Christian Mingle? So I get on Christian Mingle. And so I'm reading these profiles, and all I'm hearing is pretty much, I want to settle down now, probably after having a very wild life, and I would like a Christian woman to submit to me. That's basically, because we like good girls, kind of thing. And I was reading all of this stuff, and I'm like, okay, he sounds like he's probably a really nice guy, but now I believe in immortality, so that kind of narrows the field. And I remember I was so after a week, I'm on Christian Mingle and I'm looking at it, and I just hear, get off. And so I was like, you know what? You don't have to tell me twice. I took my profile down. So anyway, see, we're going deep into my life now. Isn't this great? All right. So I get off Christian Mingle. And so during this time, this is when I'm actually about to go to the 5-day program for the first time. So the year turns and we're in January. And I remember listening to lots and lots of podcasts. If you guys aren't on the website that has the podcast, the actual podcast, that gives you all of the wow background. Get on it. I encourage you. If there's any clarity to be had, you will get it there. I promise you. It will bring you in closer to the heart. Hey, how's it going, Daniel? And so it will bring you closer into that. So anyway, I'm listening to these podcasts, and then Kirby Fiona start going kind of on a sidebar of talking about marriage. And then they start to talk about how Jesus, the Christ, and the church, that we were supposed to be a picture and a representation of Christ and the church. And that you lay your life, he is actually laying his life down. And he's going in, he's not to subdue. You're not supposed to subdue. Hold on 1 second. Right. You're not supposed to be subdued. It's as he walks into this posture, she will naturally want to submit. And submitting doesn't mean that you shut up and don't say anything anymore and completely lose your identity to the tune of oneness, me being the dominant one. It's not that. And so it becomes this beautiful picture and scenarios. So they're talking about this, and this is unfolding. And they said, and Christ holds his bride in such high esteem. He loves his bride. And guess what? He always sees her as bride. So there's no ball and chain. There's none of that familiarity stuff there. Your bride. Like he's first seeing you, coming down the aisle when you're completely adorned. And he is posturing himself to keep washing you so you stay in that place. And I'm listening to it as they're saying it, and I'm like, it out of my spirit came. Now that is what I will have. After a 10-year period of absolute hardness, it broke. And it was just off some message that it wasn't even about that message, but it was from two people that lived it and carried it. Yeah? And so I come to Sri Lanka, and then long story short, I meet Lakshan. And so just a little bit about, he's standing right here. Just a little bit about, even before when we started to really connect and talk, Lakshan actually went to Kirby and Fiona and talked about me and his intention towards me. You see, one of the things that's missing with a lot of marriages, especially the young ones, is the men aren't making their intentions known. They're going in, and it's just kind of this very wishy-washy, vague thing. And then you have a lot of times the women having to chase down the men kind of thing, which comes out of that place of the whole women's liberation and all of that stuff. And there's a protocol that he put into place, not to enslave, but to free. And so let me give you guys an example. In Exodus, so we're going into the word, Exodus 19, 4 through 8. Because even as I'm speaking this could be bringing up stuff in you. Because if you hear what I'm saying through the ears of the world, it may make your blood boil, and all you may hear is bondage. Do you see what I'm saying? When you start thinking of submitting and that particular protocol. So it's Exodus 19, 4 through 8. Sorry. Exodus, the second book. Okay. All right. Now, this is God addressing Moses to tell the Israelites. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now here you see an intention and a going after. Yeah? Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be to me a special treasure or a treasured possession to me above all people, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak to the children of Israel. So Moses came and called for the elders of the people and laid before them all the words which the Lord commanded them. Then all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. I do. So he's making his intentions known to them. He said, this is what I've done because I love you. I am pursuing you. And if you will follow me, you will be my special treasure. Isn't that a beautiful heart of God? And it was from the beginning that he wanted that relationship with his people. You see that from the very beginning. And then you cut over to 1 Peter 2:19, where he also repeats himself, I will have a kingdom of priests. You see his attention, again, was always the same from the very beginning. So he chose a people, Israel, as an outward expression of what we were going to get through the Spirit. And then we became the manifestation of that thing, and he gave us this thing called marriage to represent him. But if you're under the law and you're not in the Spirit, getting that supernatural way of marriage, you will look at a book and you will look at verses, and then you will enslave people with what you're reading because there's no Spirit. It's just words. Can you relate? And so a lot of the marriages, both Christian and non-Christian, are now being enslaved by words. And not even just in the marriage. If, say, for example, if a marriage breaks up and it's a woman, a female, goes off into another thing, she's still enslaved by that. And a lot of times she's angry. Yeah? And it's probably vowed, I will never be treated like that again. So she may go into her next thing with carrying that offense. Okay? So that leads me to this, because there's some pretty controversial things. Did I just say that right? Controversial things in the Bible when you read them a certain way. Now let's go ahead and take Matthew 5. All right? Now we got to understand that what Jesus was doing is he was coming to take people out of the external and make it an internal reality that therefore came right back out external, but from the internal. So he was saying, you say don't commit adultery. I say, if you even look at her like that, you've already committed adultery. Now, what he's not doing is passing sentence. See, people misconstrue those things. He's not passing sentence on those people. He is saying it's going from external behavior modification to heart. So over here, where it was fine that you just gave an external sacrifice of some sort when you committed adultery, and then everything just kind of went on. No, it's not that anymore. Now you're going to go into a place of total freedom. He was trying to free them. He says, now I just got your behavior. Now I'm coming for your heart. Like he did from the very beginning. I'm coming for your heart. Yeah? And it wasn't a sentence. Do you see what I'm saying? He was trying to give them something better. Get that. Otherwise, you will read things like the Beatitudes and all that stuff very legalistically. So the Olivet Discourse, if you will. you'll read it very legalistically and make it into a stone tablet of law for people, when what he was trying to do was free them. We're going from outward to heart. Is everybody tracking with me? So when you read something like verse 531, it has been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality makes her a victim of adultery. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. So now we're in this like, oh my gosh, I'm divorced. So that means I am somehow making Lakshan commit adultery. Do you see what I'm saying? If you read that legalistically, that's what you'll see. You'll think me an adulterer. Okay? But what he's doing is just what I described to you. Said woman gets a divorce. She gets offended, goes on to the next marriage, carries it on and on and on. Maybe there's more marriages after that. You see, adultery isn't just sleeping with somebody. When Israel was considered adulterous, it wasn't just that. It was stuff about money, stuff about job. I mean, all of that stuff was considered playing the harlot with something. Okay? You can play the harlot with mammon and with money and sumptuous living. Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't have to just be, I cheated in my marriage. Harlotry covered everything that took the place of God. Yeah? Harlotry, adulterous behavior. So if she divorces, leaves, brings that offense into her next marriage, it can never really accurately represent God's original plan of what marriage was supposed to be, Christ and his church. One laying his life down for this other one, to wash her, to bring her high, to put her out and before, presented as a spotless bride. Do you see what I'm saying? Because if you see it the other way, you'll live in condemnation, wondering, am I this adulterous person that he's talking about? Amen. You see what I'm talking about? But these things, again, come from when we start knowing people after the flesh, and when we start taking the Bible and trying to put it as law on people. Yeah? And like I said earlier, we can even take these scriptures, like for example, well, he's committed adultery, so she can leave. Or vice versa. Just get her out of there. She's got grounds. Yes, it says that. It's a hard one, you guys. But when you're a son, you know that there can be reconciliation. Now, as I said before, Kirby and Fiona had a very, very, very abusive relationship before. They had all kinds of stuff going on in their relationship that would have been grounds for what I just read to you. But they knew God as a healer and a restorer, which is why we have WOW. What would happen if we didn't have it? Do you see what I'm saying? It's not to say it would never come up, but do you see the magnitude of why we need to act as sons and why that power needs to come in our relationship, why we got to get a very, very different picture, yeah, of this. Because God has sent the physical marriage to prophesy, to speak of him. People need to see it because there's power in it. That's why it's so attacked. That's why it's so persecuted. But if we've entered into our marriages with those worldly sets of thinking, we can never really truly represent what he was trying to represent. Okay? Let that sit for a little bit. If you are currently in a marriage or in a scenario that sounds a little bit like something I've been describing, there is redemption for you. And you as a son, it starts with you. He will and has made all things new. It doesn't have to stay that way. It doesn't need to be, well, like, let's take this for example, the Ephesians 5, where it starts to talk about where he's her head and all of that. Actually, I'm going to go there and I'm going to read that. Do you guys mind? Is everybody doing good? Everybody's good? Everybody's tracking? Okay. Just want to make sure. Don't get bored. Okay. And so I'm going to start in verse 18. And do not, this is Ephesians 5:18, starting in 18. And do not be drunk with wine, in which is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord, giving thanks for all things to God, the Father, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, submitting one to another. So we have to start there. Submitting one to another. Okay? Then we go on. And wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. Okay? So when you've been given a husband, you've been given a representation of him. Yeah? Now, you might look at your husband and say, no, he's not. do you see what I'm saying? But you know that comes from you're knowing him after the flesh. See, the familiarity is the kiss of death in a relationship. Familiarity is the kiss of death in a relationship. So you see him every day. You see him with bedhead. You see all of the flaws. And in your heart, you're thinking, can't be God. God is not that messy. If Jesus were here, he'd pick that up. I mean, all that kind of stuff. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can get really familiar with him. But it says right here, he's giving you this beautiful man to represent him. Now, think of Jesus in the flesh. You see how the disciples absolutely stumbled over what they saw every day. That's why he could feed 5,000 people, and they're arguing over, my God, who forgot the bread? They forgot who they were with because they'd become familiar. So even Jesus, when he came here, as powerful as he was, yeah, he had people around him becoming very familiar with him and forgetting who he was. It's safe to say that we do this to our husbands. Husbands do that to their wives. And so we don't see the invisible righteousness, but it's here, right? It's here where you're called to that deeper revelation of there is an invisible righteousness. We are called to know no man after the flesh, where this scripture verse before is basically just kind of given to the woman and say, do it or die. Law. But nobody opened up the beauty of it. Yeah? And so, wives, submit to your own husband as to the Lord. As to the Lord. Isn't that interesting? Let that sink in. As to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife. Also, Christ is the head of the church. And so he's saying, I am giving you in this partnership a model. What you have will represent Christ in the church. Isn't that huge? That's a huge thing. So it's not just this thing of, okay, I guess it's just time to get married because I'm 25 years old and my mom and dad really want some grandchildren. Do you see what I'm saying? But it's gotten turned into that. Like nowadays, well, I really don't want to be alone, and I think I can tolerate you. So let's live together because I need to test drive the car. Kind of thing. And then we just get married for as long as we think it's a good idea. Then we've fallen out of love and on we go. But that's been what it's been reduced to. But he's saying, I gave this so you could represent Christ and the church. If only that were presented to us and given for us to meditate on, right? Therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Now, see, this is where the irony of marriage comes in. It's like, okay, I'm looking for a marriage partner. Here's my list. He's got to be this, 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 this. And if he's this, deal breaker. So here we are. We're going around with our list, looking for the guy that fits the list. Okay. So we're here and we're in it. And then we're like, oh, this is awesome. This guy or girl fits the list. Yay. Okay. I feel like I know you already. Let's get married. Yay. Okay. So then we go in, we get married, and then all of a sudden, wait a second, that wasn't on the list. And so we start seeing all this other stuff. I don't think I know you. You see, the thing is, Christians do this too. You went in the marriage not having faith in God in what you were seeing. You were having faith in that list. Let's be honest. And then you get into it and you get married to somebody that you're actually going in very blindly. Now, it's not to say that you know everything about a person, because you can't know everything, but you went in blind. You went in with the wrong eyes. And so now you're in, and you still made the covenant, so the protocol still stands. Now, you didn't have faith to get into that, so you got yourself into something that's going to actually take even more faith. Because God can work through your unbelieving husband, even if he's a mess. God can work through him. So now you really have to have faith, and you really have to trust God, because you chose somebody blindly. Maybe someone that wants nothing to do with God in the way that you do, or what have you. And so now you're in this and you covenanted. And so now you need to really trust God that God will use him. Yeah. And that everything that is supposed to happen in your life will be, even though this doesn't look like the ideal scenario. Now, God can do anything. Proverbs 21, the heart of the king is in the hands of the Lord, and he turns it like water. God can do whatever with the heart. But now you're in the protocol. So even if your husband is not so spiritual as you think he should be, okay, judgment, not so spiritual as you think he should be, now you get to trust God to use him, to speak through him. Trust God that in him is an invisible seed of righteousness that will come and will bloom if you stay in your posture of honor, submission. But God, he won't let me go on the mission. Honor, submission. And even in all of his mistakes, do you know that God will still come through for you? God will still make that marriage absolutely beautiful. And by the way, do you think that you're easy to live with? He's got to lead you. He's got to lay his life down. Do you see what I'm saying? We're not the easiest either, folks. So we can look at him very critically. I like to actually compare it to dancing. When you do ballroom dancing, now I was like a jazz dancer, a contemporary dancer. So I got to own the stage yeah, here I am, look at me, right? But then when you get into ballroom dancing, you got to let him lead. And so you're learning the steps, he's learning the steps, but he's got to learn the steps and lead you. Do you think that's easy for him? That's a tall order. He got put as Lord to you on earth. He's aware of his flaws and mistakes. And if you're not in a position of honor, you're probably reminding him of those things. But you entered into a covenant, and there's a reason for it. God put this thing together because it's supposed to free you. It's a picture of what is supposed to free the world, Christ and the church. And it's a mystery. Like, how could this thing that seems like it's so messy at times be the thing that frees somebody? But how can something so gruesome looking as the cross free the world? It looked like a failure. Come on. But he gave it as freedom, and he's given marriage, and even in all of our imperfections within our relationships, he's given a protocol because it works. If you'll allow it to work, and if you'll get out of the flesh and stop looking at him or her after that flesh. And so, gentlemen, husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church. Now, with the whole thing with abuse and adultery, did Christ abuse his church? Did God abuse the Israelites? No, he went after them and got them out of Egypt, even though they were in complete idolatry. Read it in Ezekiel. They were completely in idolatry. But yet, he made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to bring them out. That's why he said, I'm doing this for their sake. I know what you're doing, but because for their sake, I'm bringing you out of here. And it's really no different. He's chosen not to see you as the world sees you. He chose. And he's bringing you out even in all of your mess and calling you righteous when we all know that you're not. In your humanity. Do you see what I'm saying? And so husbands are to love their wives that way. And so if you get an abuse scenario, you can see right here without it being verbatim that doesn't fit that description. And so it is by the Spirit that person, whoever is in it, is going to be freed. So, for example, if you have a person that is trapped in a relationship where it's abusive, whether it's a physical or an emotional or whatever kind of the first thing you need to do is not try to go in like gangbusters and bring in the law. Okay? The first thing you need to do is to empower that person. If they're a Christian, they have obviously forgotten who they are or have never known it. And so you get to bring that to them and say, hey, it's not like, girl, you don't got to take that. It's not that. It's basically, you don't know who you are. Because if you did know who you are, this wouldn't be coming to you. And that's not blaming that person. It is letting them know that you actually have power over this thing. Now, if it's an unsaved person, even better. Did you know that there's a posture that you can be in that this will never happen to you again? Did you know there's freedom for you? Not just in this marriage, but in everything else? Because usually people that are abused are not just getting abused in a relationship. The life is smacking them around. And chances are they want to be free. And this is just a way that you come in and you introduce them to the only person that can save them from that whatever in their relationship. Otherwise, they might leave it, but they might end up right back where they started from. Why is that? Humanity has a bloodline. Humanity has something that comes down to the bloodline where women get abused and abused again. People are in alcoholism again and again and again. Adultery again and again and again. You've seen it even in your own line, a whole long line of this kind of person. It's bloodline. Because nothing defiles a man that comes from the outside. This is why Jesus had to come to save. So Christians don't understand sometimes who they are and that they've been saved from it, so they'll be sitting in it, reading scriptures like, oh, I have to submit and God hates divorce. Do you see what I'm saying? They're reading that legalistically. They don't understand the spirit or the heart behind it. When you go in and you empower them, then you can bring the spirit of what it's supposed to be, and then they can be free from it. It's a very different way of doing it. Okay? Here's another one, pornography. The marriage bed is not defiled. This is a good one. Yeah? Because I remember I had a personal training client come to me. I didn't really know this woman. I just knew that she was a Christian, went to a different church, and on our first session together, she opens up and starts talking about husband into pornography, expecting her to act certain things out to the tune of the marriage bed is not defiled. And I mean, it was a jaw-dropping experience. I tried not to drop my jaw, but I mean, I didn't expect that to be happening in the middle of a personal training session. But there it was. And yes, this goes on in a lot of places because people have given themselves to a depraved mindset. They've come into a church that doesn't offer transformation by the heart. So they are abstaining and hiding their issues with, for example, pornography. And then once they get into the marriage, marriage bed is not defiled. Now you get to do what I want. And you have people at the leadership condoning it. Gross, gross, gross misunderstanding of the heart of God. Yeah? Hold on one second. I'm going to find a scripture for you. Hebrews 13:4. Now, I don't know if you know anybody that fits this scenario, but because this is in your earshot, get ready. Hebrews 13:4. Now, let's start in 1. Let brotherly love continue. Do not forget to entertain strangers, for by doing so, some have unwittingly entertained angels, okay? Remember the prisoners. Okay, so now, marriage is honorable among all, and the bed undefiled. Now, see anything honorable about pornography? Anyone? It's basically someone saying, I want to get something from you. So you perform whatever, my fantasy, so that I can benefit from what you're doing. So basically, you're going in and you're taking from that person. You're using that person. Where is the honor in it? So we chop off the front end and the back end of that scripture so we can use that little piece to do what we want to and say everything is okay within the bounds of marriage. I'm sure some of you have heard it. I know I have. So marriage is honorable among all, and the bed undefiled. Now here's the kicker. But fornicators and adulterers God will judge. When you're looking at that woman on that pornography thing and the way that you're doing, do you suppose that you're being faithful to your wife in what you're doing? Faithful to your husband? Wouldn't that fit fornication and adultery? Yeah. Do you see where I'm going with that? Because it's taking, again, we often treat the Bible like this buffet. I like this, I don't like that. I like this, I don't like that. Do you see what I'm saying? We just kind of take and put it in. But they said that in the last days, the people are going to make a tailor-made religion, something that fits them and fits what they want to do. And so, because people in their worldly thing, because they haven't known the word to be a transforming agent, especially with Christians, they've come in with these perversions and defilements from the world, and now they're trying to put it into a marriage and trying to subject their wife or their husband to it. But marriage is honorable. And it's the picture of Christ and his church. That's the mystery. And I'm going all over the place with these different scenarios because what I'm trying to do is to address any sort of doctrination that's been put into you about marriage. And I'm trying to bring you to this place where you let those things go and you let your marriage heal. You begin to look at your partner very differently. If you truly believe that God has set up that protocol of marriage where he's the head, not to enslave you, but to empower you, and that he is to lay his life down for you, if you understand what God was trying to do and you trust him in what he was trying to do, he will bring the full benefit of what it's supposed to be in your life. You will see miracles if you will honor and if you will submit. And I am absolute living proof of that. Okay? I put this already on our chat. I don't know if you guys saw the little video that I did, but someone could look at me, you know, in the world and say that I should be calling the shots. Because I'm the more educated one, the one that's had more world experience and all of that stuff. Someone would say, oh, we need to look to me. No. And I'm absolutely glad of this protocol, right? Because before, when I was married before, I did want to call the shots. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And nothing good will come of it. It just won't. But now that I've learned, you know, and it came out of that scripture of Jesus when he was in the temple teaching the Pharisees with all this wisdom. He knew way more than all of them did, certainly his parents. But yet, even in all that legalism, under the law, under people under the law, Jesus still grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. It didn't stop God's plan for Jesus. And if your marriage is less than perfect, it said Jesus went from that temple that day and submitted himself to his parents. He submitted himself to them. Look it up. He submitted himself and then grew in wisdom and stature in favor with God and man. Not he stayed in the temple, pushed his parents away because he knew more than them and started teaching everybody. No, he submitted himself to them and then grew in wisdom, stature, favor with God and man. And it will be no difference for you in your marriage. That if you will submit and if you will see that man, especially us ladies, in the invisible righteousness, if you will see him through the eyes of God, and if you will honor him, then God will work all things for you. You see, for some of you who might be listening, if your words over and over again aren't working, it's probably because they're in offense and judgment, and you're not seeing through the eyes of God. You're not seeing that, you're seeing that person after the flesh. And so if you keep speaking of that person after the flesh, you're going to keep reaping the flesh. And especially if that person isn't saved, your words are coming to him with an anointing on him, and you keep pronouncing death over him. When you absolutely have the power to shift that around by changing your focus. If you change your focus, your words and your way will come out very, very differently, and the situation around you will change. Now, this isn't me suggesting we stay in an abusive marriage. My thing is, there needs to be empowerment by the Spirit first. Get the law out of it. It won't serve. And if you will do that, you will be surprised at what might happen. We have a ministry full of marriages that were saved that were in abuse real bad. Do you really believe that God can do that? And that's going to challenge you, what you think about God and how powerful he really is in that scenario when you see it. And so what I want to leave you guys with, because this is a lot that I'm giving you, and I can feel the struggle. And it's okay, because this is going to go in deep and it's going to unravel, because sometimes in the predicament that we get in, we get so far in, we just don't see how the way out. But he is always seen, and it's finished. And if you can align yourself through the protocol, then maybe you will see, and it'll become. And heaven will come to earth through you in it. Yeah? So that is all I want to say for today. But I'm going to turn myself off. If you have comments, go ahead. So I'm just going to mute myself. Ready? Go.
All right, I'll jump in. So this is really good, because I have a friend who's a believer and her husband isn't, and I've struggled to sort of help her along in a way that she doesn't get offended, because right now her ammo is to just stay away from him. But I feel like what you brought is a way to empower her to not run and hide and be a victim, but to know that she has the power of Christ in her to help transform her marriage. But the way you put it, I even jotted some things down where I could present it to her in a way where she won't be offended, because she is still in that victim mode. Does that make sense? So thank you for this. This is really good, Melissa. I hear you.
Muted, Melissa.
Sorry, guys. Okay. But don't be afraid to plant the seed, even though she might get offended, because now that you've been, I guess, enlightened, that seed is now the potential to open her heart, even though she's offended. It's going to awaken her conscience. And when that happens, that's when the real power comes. Okay, next one.
So a word of testimony and encouragement. I was married for 10 years and I was a heathen. I was straight up lost. I was gone. And Jamie, she sanctified the household. She was saved. And she got me to where I am today. So she submitted to me, Hal, Grace, but she endeavored through it. She went through it 10 years. And at the end of the 10 years, it got to the point where we were at that point. She couldn't figure out anything else. And divorce was just like the only possible solution to anything. And then God showed up. Thank God. I submitted my life to the Lord and received Him. And I got born from above. And that's where everything started changing. So just a word of encouragement for whoever. Maybe you can pass it on. Hang in there. Follow the protocol. Can't say that enough. And God definitely gives you the grace to do that. Absolutely. And I got one more if nobody else jumps in real quick. We just counseled a couple very recently, and the wife was a believer, but the husband was not. And they were married for 10 years. They're coming up on 10 years. However, more worse than what we were. He was in addiction with opiates. There was a strong suspicion of infidelity going on. It was getting bad. And the Lord intervened where I was able to minister the word to her and basically counsel her in the word, stick to the protocol for this conversation. And actually, I got the opportunity to speak to the man. And I showed the man what the problem was. Mm-hmm. I showed him in the word what the deal was. Now, at this time now, the condition was right. Everything was right. And I was just there to facilitate, just to minister the word. And it opened him up. That night, he gave his life to the Lord. Mm-hmm. That night, like 10, he says it was actually like 10 at night. He was living in a hotel room because it was just that bad. He said, I don't know what happened. I was on the floor and like for 30 minutes, I don't know. The next day, and I'm telling you, the wife now says, I got a new man. I got a new husband. I got a new father. I got a new marriage. I got family. And today, they're just like, it is exactly what God designed. But the word. So the word works. Yes. Hallelujah. It was awesome.
And let's see, I feel to tell you guys this. If a person ends up divorced, they are not condemned. See, that was also going around on the chat. Well, what happens if you do? Okay, you've been forgiven. The entire price has been paid. And sometimes that happens. Do you see what I'm saying? So if it has happened to you, don't get condemned. Even if you divorce for all the wrong reasons, are you forgiven or are you not? Do you see what I'm saying? Because if you look at the word in the wrong way, for some reason we hold divorced people like they're just like the plague for some reason. I mean, I was in a church where I was in a singles group, but it was the divorced singles. We weren't allowed to be around the real singles. You know, like I have the Scarlet D on or something like that. And so there's this great big stigma. But it's like, even if you did it for stupid reasons and it happened, you've been forgiven. We want to go and we want to try to save it because God doesn't hate divorce because he's just ticked off at you for doing it. There's a reason why. Because he was creating a beautiful picture of marriage and then it got broken. It's not a happy thing. Yeah, I think it hurts his heart more than he hates you, like people would try to put it. So we've got to, you know, get that stigma off of it if that's been you. All right. So anybody else?
Yeah, I shared a little bit of my story on the chat as well. And I think I lived for a very long time in that legalistic understanding. And sometimes I would find a little bit of comfort and feel a little bit free by kind of telling myself, you know, you tried everything you could to save the marriage, but he didn't want to. So in the end, I almost kind of didn't have a choice. So then I would feel better for a while, but then I would still, and I took my maiden name back. So in many circumstances, it was just easy to stay quiet and people wouldn't know. But it was in a place where for probably 15 years that I couldn't openly speak and tell people like, yeah, I'm divorced and this is what happened, you know, because I mean, especially like that Matthew 5 scripture came back to me all the time. For so many years, I believed like, well, this is it. I had my chance. I'm not allowed to ever get married again. So I just need to make peace with it. And for many years, even when I felt like, yeah, I'm forgiven and whatever, I can't, because nobody was able to explain this verse to me. But tonight you explained it, even though I didn't feel under that condemnation that much anymore. But tonight, really, for the first time, I got that thing. It's like, yeah, if I stick with the offense that I picked up from the marriage that didn't work out, from the husband that didn't treat me well, from even what I did wrong in the marriage, from everything, if I keep on living in that offense and I get married still under that offense, then the same problems are going to come up again. So then the marriage is possibly going to fail again. So then that's where the adultery then come in again. And it's just like, wow, okay, great. I need to just go back and make sure that I really am done with all the offenses from that time. And I know that I'm not fully, even though you sometimes think you are. I know, like even last year, I met someone that looked like it could move towards something like that, but I got plain scared. I went to God in tears and I said to him, Lord, I'm too scared. I'm not ready for this. In the end, the guy wasn't ready for anything either. So we had twice coffee and that was it. But just the idea of something that might come, it had me totally scared of being abused again, of being misused, of being whatever. And I realized like there's still stuff in me that I need to work on. And thinking of that, I'm actually saying like, Lord, thank you very much that I haven't gotten married yet again, because it would have been a disaster again, because I've had that stuff in me still. And even since then, I've been really praying and asking God to clean me out and to get me to a place where I can trust Him in that person and not have to trust that person as much. So yeah, because I do want to get married. I don't want to, but not because I hate being alone. I love being single. It makes me free to travel as much as I wish. But also I see how it can bring me closer to God if I go into it in the right way.
Awesome. Thank you. So anybody else? Thank you, Anita. Yeah? Well, you guys, I'll let you all go because it's getting a little bit late here and I got to get up pretty early. But you guys, I so enjoyed talking with you today. And I sincerely hope that you got something really good out of this. And so if you have any more that you want to add to it, just please, as usual, put it on the WhatsApp chat. Jeff, we're looking forward to having you. We're getting all ready. This is going to be good. And so then Onita, you're next. And all of you guys, if you can, get yourselves out here. It'll be a big party. So anyway, good night, all of you. Bless all of you. Let the seed of this word fall into your heart and let it take root. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.